All right, here we go.
That one will go up first,
Do you
right?
think
So
the
I'll
audience can
answer
see that
this.
he's sick?
I don't know. He doesn't move.
He has swim bladder disease.
Yeah, that's the same thing that you said last time, right?
Yeah, he still has it.
Mike,
Yeah,
you think
his
if we
things-
replaced the fish, you would even notice?
How dare you monster.
We could get a second fish tank.
Can you take your fish home? All right.
Is that what y'all are really saying?
Poor guy.
All right, first question.
Are you going to intro this at all?
He told me not to.
Welcome to Ask Max, where we answer.
Ask Mask round 2.
Where we
I didn't
answer
want to
your
start and then you'd be like, hold up. We got to use the film again.
we answer your questions from Instagram.
All right. We're just gonna dive right in then. All right, first question from Nathan Corrigal, 26, asked, what are your protocols when designing a layout with someone who needs work on a limitation priority in their training? For example, someone that needs to work on their pulling endurance with chest to bar pull-ups, where do you start? How do you monitor repetitions in a week, month, training cycle? What's too little or too much? That's a mouthful.
Yeah. When I hear a question like that, I generally assume that this guy specifically has a chest to bar limitation and he's asking how you get it better, because the conversation would potentially be different depending on what limitation they have. Like, some people's limitation is their lifestyle. Like, they want to get better, but they have a full-time job, or they work shift work and they can't recover enough to do the training that they want. So that, I guess it's the same in that I need to assess what I perceive to be the problem is. So some of the problems that I see in chest to bar endurance could be midline strength, could be that they're weak in their upper body pulling, or they're weak just in the positional retraction that's required to get their chest to the bar, and they can't do a strict chest to bar.
Which we're learning is a big problem for a lot of people.
And a lot of people don't have that because they can't actually flex their wrists at the top. So one thing that I've noticed in a lot of really high level people that are really good at the top of their chest to bars, they actually rotate and come up and come into a little bit of wrist flexion to finish that range of motion, which actually brings the bar slightly closer to the chest. So there's like movement issues that potentially could be involved, that they don't have the shoulder girdle to get down into the bottom of the kip. They don't have straight arm pull down strength to get back. They don't have midline integrity to keep their body line for that portion of the straight arm pull down. So there's a lot of movement, strength, gymnastics things that I would go into that wouldn't really be monitored from a volume perspective, the same way that it sounds like he's thinking of chest to bars as like a strength or an endurance piece where you're monitoring volume and intensity
Just
in a
building
week.
capacity.
Yeah, building capacity. So sometimes somebody's capacity ceiling is limited by their movement quality or by a specific joint that's weak, or a bicep that doesn't have good closing angle strength, or like too much mass in the bicep. So there's a lot of issues that go into it. Then if that isn't an issue, the next thing I would evaluate is their actual capacity. What is their capacity in a mixed modal setting to be able to do chest to bars before they start to hit their failure point? And then what is the failure point? Are they feeling grip fatigue? I find a lot of people, it's actually a heart rate limitation. I don't know if that's the bracing that's required. I don't know if it's that the hyperinflation position that comes at the bottom of the chest to bar causes a lot of inhalation, which then causes sympathetic drive, which is a trigger to the nervous system to increase heart rate and just ramps them up. So I need to evaluate what it is and at what threshold they have, they do have current capacity in. Then once I get that, then I start to structure training progressions around whatever I perceive the limitations are. Sometimes when I get those questions, I feel like people think I have these formulas for laying out volume and intensity. Well, this is how I build it. This is how I build density. There's a ton of training tools you can use. You can use EMOMs. You can put them in actual workouts. You can put them in intervals that are followed by cyclical stuff if you want to drive respiration and heart rate and then do the work. You can drive blood pressure first by doing strength work into the chest to bars. You can drive blood pressure also by doing loaded carries before you go into it. But the selection of what methods I use are dependent upon what limitations I find in the assessment. So for all issues, I take the issue, I assess the issue, and then when I think I have a guide on like, well, okay, this is what I think it is, then I go into my toolbox of like, here are my movement things I could work on, here are my strength things that I could work on, here are my energy system things that I could work on, and I select the methods that I think are going to help this athlete get better.
Man, you just exhaled for 4 minutes.
Hey man, where's your peanut butter at? Get you a scoop.
Oh man.
Well done.
I felt really good about getting that one done.
All right. Next question.
I feel like, Mike, you should be like Veronica. Was that her name from
I was thinking the
Billy
Price is
Madison?
Right.
Where like each time
That
he does
is
it.
correct. I was thinking more like Chris Farley.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say every time he does it within the time, you have to take off the article.
Armada.
lose some of
Spanish
the
Armada. All right, Jim John. Next question from Jim John. I just want to say it again. Jim John 4. That's a great name.
One more time.
All right, Jim John. How do you deal with an athlete who grossly misunderstands and or overestimates their abilities or projected ceiling?
Well,
Go.
first of all, shout out to Jim John because I know he just broke 200 on his 10-minute salt bike test.
Oh, nice.
And I haven't done that, so he's superior to me like everyone else. Man, that's a really difficult question. How do you deal with athlete psyche? How do you deal with either arrogance and an overinflated sense of self, or ironically, some of my highest level athletes don't believe that they're capable of being at the highest level. That's something that I think happens over time and over being exposed to the situations and coming to peace with whatever reality does exist. I think there's like neuro-linguistic programming things that you can do, or auto-suggestion where you can have people reinforce themselves and say like, you know, I'm great, I belong, like things that boost somebody's morale, or just changing the lexicon they use to describe themselves. I know I just did it actually in this video. I'm the king of putting myself down, and that's not the example that I probably should be setting for my athletes, but getting them to change that verbiage that they use to describe themselves on a regular basis if they beat themselves up. Generally, the people that have too much self-esteem relative to what their capacity is, I just put them in situations that I know are going to expose them. I'd never allow somebody to hide from their own capabilities if I have the tools to expose them. If I have athletes on site that are good enough to make them like realize how far they are away from their goals, I'll be like, okay, well, why don't you do a workout with them and see how far away you are, right?
Okay.
If you lose by 7 minutes on a workout, you know that you have a lot of work to do, exposing them to competitions where, you know, the leaderboard doesn't lie. And people can only make excuses for themselves so many times showing up to competitions and, you know, being really low on the leaderboard and saying like, oh, it was my food, it was this, it was that, it was that. It's like, all right, well, let's find another one and go and do it. And it happens over and over and over again. And then I'm just honest. I'm like, well, if I see this pattern and you're constantly making these excuses, and I know other athletes are dealing with these same exact things, then this is potentially on you. And I think that's just something that I've always been relatively comfortable doing, is having those kind of difficult conversations and exposing people to self-reflect, or, you know, trying to bring self-awareness around whatever's required to attain the goal. But the opposite is a really difficult problem. I think you can look into cognitive behavioral therapy research. You can find sports psychologists. I've done this for myself and I've done it with athletes, but I know it's a very stubborn issue to try to change how somebody perceives themselves from a good or bad issue. And when they're bad and they want to perceive themselves better, that's a very, very difficult thing to change. But for me, specifically in my life, because I know I've had self-esteem issues for as long as I can remember, I just worked. I just tried to outwork everybody else. And over time, I started realizing that the outcome of that was something that other people aspired and looked up to. And I was like, well, I can't be that big of a piece of shit if people keep coming to me for advice or thinking I'm good at something. So for me, those people, I just try to make sure they, instead of thinking about the outcome, are thinking about the process. I don't know if that's good enough to do it.
I got a tip for you.
Yeah.
You could use it whenever you need to. I actually went to Tony Robbins, me and Chris Moore did, for it was like a 5-day thing. And all you got to do, and we did this for weeks afterwards, is get out of your seat, jump up, put your hands in the air, and say, change your state, change your life, change your state, change your life. Try it.
Yeah. But that actually is, that is what auto-suggestion stays. Like there's a book from, I think it's from the early 1900s. It's a 40 or 50 page little manual by Amelie Koo, I think. And it has like a little mantra that says like each and every day I'm going to get better in every way or something like that. And you repeat it to yourself all the time. And anytime you start to go negative, you repeat it. And there is...
I use a mantra when I'm in pain. When I'm at the dentist or when I'm in a triathlon.
Yeah, it's a good mantra too. But I think words have power, and it's probably the only way that you can change your own self-belief.
I just have to say one thing.
You brought that over.
I think you're great, Max.
Thank you.
I think that you're very capable of 200 calories. I'm going to be honest. I don't think you can get 227.
I think I can.
But
I'm going to get 230.
I just want to be real.
Did you get 227?
Yeah. He's trying to beat me.
I hate Mike.
All right, next question. We were a little over on that one, but that's a good one.
No, I was good. He
change your state, change your life.
So funny.
Will you just do one hop, please?
No, Mike can.
My knee hurts.
Well,
I used to stand in front of a mirror and do this, like I just won something, and it feels really good. And then I quit doing it because it didn't really work. All right, next question. CMB, or I'll just say CM Beckno. Most of the TTT philosophy is science-driven. So do you recommend warm-up recovery strategies based on scientific literature? 2, a lot of prehab and recovery tools out there just make people feel better with no proven physiological data. Example, foam rolling before a workout.
All right. Most of TTT's philosophies are scientific. I'm not sure if I agree with that, unless you just call science observation. I think probably myself, I'm a slave to whatever works. Like I really don't care if it's proven or not. If it works, I'm going to use it. And I'm going to evaluate whether or not it works and what people it works on and how it works. So I think maybe that is governed by the scientific process of inquiry, like asking questions. Is this working? Is this not working? Use the methods that are good, throw everything else out. With regards to prehab, rehab, again, is it supported by, do I only use it if it's supported by science? Some people only use it because it feels good. The placebo effect is heavily researched and it is a real thing. So if it feels good to me and it improves performance, it is by default scientifically proven because the placebo effect is real. With regards to foam rolling, and like I'll just address those specific things because that would be the end of my answer to the question. Those things, in my mind, in the way that I classify the human body in training, are things that you use to modulate tension. So when people are doing those things to reduce tension prior to exercising, I would ask, is the exercise that you're choosing one in which you want that tissue to be lowered tension? So if you're doing a bunch of strength work and beforehand you're anti-tensing, you're doing things to relax and trigger a parasympathetic response, you're probably destabilizing your body. If you need to do that, like if you're a really tight person who can't get into the bottom of the snatch and you need to do that foam rolling activity to be able to create the position, that's fine. But then right afterwards in your warm-up, you should be doing a ton of stiffness warm-up and preparatory work, whether that's DNS or Stir the Pots or Stu McGill's Big 3 or whatever tools you want to use, plyometrics, jumping, something to stiffen your body up so that you're protected and your spine is stable. And if it's a low tension activity, like you need to do a bunch of repeated wall balls where you want blood flow in the lower body, and the spinal loading of a 20-pound ball is probably not something where you need maximal levels of brace, but instead you need blood flow to the legs and you need improved just energy system capacity, then it might be a good tool. So again, I'm not really a slave to what the research says, because I don't really know whether the research is being evaluated on people that have similar athletic profiles and athletic goals and training styles to the people that I'm working with. Instead, I create a theoretical model based on my own understanding of training and the human body's adaptability. I try something out and I say, hey, how did that feel? How did that work? And over time, I teach the athlete how to warm up for themselves depending on the activity that they're selecting to do on that specific day.
Cool. 45 seconds left. I've read a couple of the articles in the mass magazines,
Yep.
Those subscriptions that have gone out, and they've covered a couple of studies with foam rolling, whether it was, does it reduce power output, whether in Olympic lifts or power lifts, and did it temporarily change any muscle length or tension?
Yeah.
There's some pretty good studies in there, so it has been looked at before.
Yeah.
But again, it's so specific to a certain group for a specific exercise that it's hard to say yes for all of it.
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever get a body or a research that can give you a full and comprehensive answer to things that are that complicated, but we do read it on a regular basis.
Cool. I love that word. Cool.
I've absorbed it when I'm talking now sometimes.
Yeah, he does it now.
Do you really? Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh.
All right, this one says part 1 and part 2 from Teddy Lomas. You just wanted to cover part 1?
Well, I think part 1 and part 2 are different questions, so
Okay,
it would be
all
8
right.
minutes, so let's just do part 1, right?
All right, yep. All right, so from Teddy Lomas, part 1. Ex-soccer player, I think that's him. Naturally good aerobic base, I think that's also him. Takes to skills, gymnastics, and Olympic lifting pretty well, but his clear weaknesses are strength, power. Sorry, I guess it's not him.
No, it is.
Okay. It says his clear weaknesses are strength, power, no real background in this type of training, and is a naturally enduring athlete rather than a powerful one. If you had to come up with a timeline to build him a strong foundation in this sport where he is competing in RX WODs confidently, he is willing to play the long-term game and do whatever is programmed. How long does that take in this current day?
So what he's really asking is,
Asking for a friend.
How long will it be before this other guy is me? The answer to this question is the unfortunate it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Will Morad was a soccer player that I think was doing CrossFit for 2 years before he went to the games, and then a year later he snatched 300 pounds. So his adaptation to strength work was just absolutely off the charts. I think there are people that solve an athletic equation in different ways. So there probably are some soccer players that are very enduring with regards to change of direction, running, ball handling skills, and figure out how to play the game with rest recovery bursts than others who are probably more constantly in motion at a little bit of a slower speed or take advantage of their endurance in the second half of the games as opposed to using their explosive nature to be good at the sport. So I would say within the sport of soccer, it would be the people that have more natural explosiveness, better change of direction, better closing speed, who would potentially have the ability to come into a sport that requires barbell strength and get better. There are just adaptations that some people are not naturally good at. Like a lot of times people think about endurance and the adaptations you get from a parasympathetic standpoint and from a cardiac standpoint, and then don't think about the fact that maybe I don't have the ability to create the pressure inside of my body because my heart can't handle it. So there are genetic prerequisites to the adaptations that you need from a strength perspective. There are neural issues, and if you need to create neural drive, if you have lowered testosterone profiles, naturally it's very difficult to do that. So there's a huge range of where people come from and then where they can go and how much variance they have within it. If he's naturally having difficulty with regards to strength work and getting better, then I would say that his entire program needs to be conducive to creating anabolism and tension, like on a plyometric program, eating a ton of protein, doing a lot of bodybuilding and desaturation work. But the reality is he might never, ever get strong enough to be competitive, or he might do something like that that's a radical deviation from what he was doing before, and he might be elite in a year. I try not to create false promises and say that good protocols can turn somebody elite, because I've seen people who I think are on awful protocols who become world class, and I see people who do things that I consider very intelligent and thought out and not get any better. So like how people adapt and what that adaptation looks like and how long it takes is much more complicated than what the actual protocol looks like.
Nice. With a minute left, I want to add something. Have you made a mistake in the past of looking at someone's history of sport and assuming that based on the demands of the sport that that's the kind of athlete that they'll be?
Oh man, yeah, for sure. I think I succeeded at a pretty high level in football and wrestling, and assumed that all of the people that were in that sport would have similar ways of solving the equation that I did. But I realized over time that that's just false. I mean, I've seen people that are really explosive, heavily muscled football players that are super, super enduring. And then I saw wrestlers that were weak, flexible, and lanky that were national champions. So it's just it's the human body, and the variance within the human body is so high, and you can solve the equation of sport in so many different ways that you shouldn't assume that because somebody has a background or a size profile that they are going to express physiology in a certain way.
I think it was a buzzer shot. Cool. All right, time for rapid fire. Let me pick up where we left off the last one. I think the last question was, why is a shoe called a shoe? And we just don't know.
I should have looked
We
that
just
up.
don't know.
Yeah. My name is Tie My Shoe.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm going to wait for you to get the first question out.
Yeah,
I
it's
feel
kind
like
of a
that
long
should be
one
a
too.
new
So
rule.
AG Ferris 5 asked, hey, Training Think Tank, it's clear that analytics is becoming a staple in major pro sports today. How do you see advanced analytics data science being used in CrossFit today, and where would you like to see more analytics being used in the future?
Where I see it being used, I mean, we use it a little bit in terms of aggregating our data on testers. I know there's a company, I think it was called like CFG Analytics or something, that was putting out analytics on like what your snatch open scores and how that was like, and they graph out like where you are in the 95th percentile. The reality is right now, I think a lot of the data is useless. I don't think the data set's big enough. I think the tests change every year.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's based on a year-to-year basis.
Yeah, so I think that in order for data to be more useful in this sport, we're going to need to see more patterns and trends emerge in terms of the actual sport. It would need to be like, well, this is what the testing structure is going to look like on a regular basis before we could figure out who successfully solves that equation. Prior to that, I don't think data analytics are really going to do that much to create world-class athletes, and except in the cross comparison of athletes.
Cool. Next question. D-Hawk asked, do you think Islands in the Stream is overrated, underrated, or properly rated?
I wish I knew the song. I should have heard it, but I don't know.
I think it's like Dolly Parton or something. I could be dead wrong on that. That was a shot in the dark. Sid Fitness asked, if you could pick one exercise to do for the rest of your life, what would it be and why?
I don't think I
Shake
have.
weight.
Yeah, I don't think I have an answer to that question.
What's the first one that comes to mind?
I would think a martial art, but that's not exercise.
Come on, man.
Maybe
just
a
answer the
Turkish
question.
get-up.
Pick it.
Oh, no. If you're stuck on an island, you can only do one. You choose a Turkish
Well,
get-up.
what else would I pick?
Like a
A snatch?
thruster Cossack squat or something. A Rich 91 asks, what's your process of taking a good athlete and turning them into a great one? At what level are you willing to work with athletes to mold them into regionals and games athletes?
I think the question inherently gives coaches too much power. No coach can mold any athlete into anything. An athlete needs to do the work. I don't have a timeline for that. I don't know how to answer it other than that. I mean, I have protocols that I give to people, and then they do them, and they either get better or they don't, and we figure out how to do that together over time. But I don't think any coach can turn a good athlete into a great athlete. That process is something that is between you and you.
Cool. Wave Mountain I think so. Wave Mountain 182. Accessory work, assuming we do a strength piece, metcon, gymnastic piece, aerobic mono piece most days.
Pause the time.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is the longest
Yeah.
question.
I know.
Yeah, I'm losing all my time.
All right, we'll pause the timer
Yeah.
for that one. You already did. I'm just letting people know that I'm in charge here. Accessory work. I'm sorry. Accessory work, assuming we do a strength piece, metcon, gymnastic piece, aerobic mono piece most days. When, how, and why would we incorporate accessory stuff? Should we take? Do you want me to finish the whole thing?
Yeah.
All right. Should we take out some other pieces to accommodate it, or add to a current written program for it, especially if there's a weakness that needs to be focused on, assuming the program covers it all for the generalist, but not exactly for those weak in one specific area? You want me to read it again?
It's just so
Phone
much.
a friend.
Yeah,
You can skip.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to skip that one. Let me, off timer, just quickly address it. First of all, what is accessory work? I mean, if he has all of that stuff in his program, then some of it by default probably has to be supporting. Like, if you're doing...
They can't all be, you can't be nailing them all
Yeah,
100%.
I mean, you're not doing maximal back squats, then a maximal monostructural piece, then a metcon, and like... There has to be some sort of structure in there that some of those pieces are accessory work, or in the warm-up or in the cool-down. That question is a little bit convoluted and very dense. I would need much more context to be able to properly answer that.
All of that so much, it sounds like the focus needs to be narrowed a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good question.
Yeah, just complicated.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it paused until you get the question out. I want to get some more of these rapid fires out. I don't want to leave people unanswered.
All right, Manu Dobon asked, what do you consider a real good CrossFit athlete? Someone who does well at the games?
Yeah, somebody who does well at the games.
Cool.
How well? Like 4th or 12th?
Yeah, top 12.
Henley C124 asked, do you have experience with athletes who struggle with breathing through the nose during workouts to a constant runny nose?
I do have people that at some point you probably need to up your intensity to the point that you are ventilating through your mouth if you are going hard enough. So that shouldn't preclude you from working hard if you have a stuffy nose. But if you do, I'd probably go check with an ENT or go get some allergy testing or something if it's that big of a problem.
I think it's the idea that's thrown around a lot that it's better to only breathe through your nose in heavy breathing training, but you're just limiting oxygen intake, and you need oxygen when you're going hard.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of ventilation and CO2, O2 exchange you need to do at the highest level of sport, you can't do through your nose. So even though it could be a useful training tool to create breathing awareness and to improve your inhalation musculature, it's not something that I would be coaching people to do on a regular basis at max effort.
Calorina says she blew a snot bubble during the workout yesterday. I'll tell you what.
Can we do it? Can we just?
I'll tell you what. The memory card has 2 minutes left, so you can just run this sucker down.
All right, here we go. You ready?
We're going right to the 2 minute mark, and we're going to cut the video
No,
off.
it's just going to cut off by itself.
All right, ready? All right, at Life of Pi asks, is it true that Life of Pi, that's Evan Piken, made you cry when you got physiological testing done?
Evan could never make me cry.
Follow-up question, is it true that Justin Timberlake wrote the 2002 pop Hit Cry Me a River in commemoration of said event? That's false because when did he test you, in 2002?
No.
Yeah, so it doesn't even make sense, Evan.
Yeah. Evan, we thought you were smart. Get out of here.
Pamela Gearing, sorry, Pamela. Any suggestions for how to build snatch strength when overhead squat?
We're going to do
that. Oh
that
yeah,
in
we're going to do that in another video. We'll come back to that. BS Strong, would you use MAF, maximum aerobic function, in order to develop an athlete's aerobic base? If so, would you use MAF on both cyclical and mixed modal training? Can you please elaborate on the benefits or not of low intensity training for elite athletes? Thanks a lot.
For an endurance athlete, maybe, probably not for a CrossFitter. The benefits of high or low intensity training is there a lot. It can lower tension, improve cardiac output, trigger some parasympathetic nervous system activation. Like, I use it all the time.
Go to a short one. A short one.
I tried. There's not any short ones. Damn you people.
Just pick one.
Look how they're seriously so long.
This should be a good ending.
Have you all ever thought of doing a general program for the masses?
Yes, we are going to launch it soon.
That's not true.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Maybe.
We need more than 4 minutes for that one. All right, last one. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized T mares or 1 horse-sized Travis mare?
Definitely 100 duck-sized T mares. Because even if they took me out, I would kill a bunch of them first.
And killing multiple
Travis
mares is better
helps
than
me get a lot of resentment out.
Got it. Chris, how we doing on space?
10 seconds.
All right. I'll read a short one. How much can an athlete realistically expect to improve in the open within their region next year? For example,
Get out of here.